Thanks a lot. Great to be here. My first time in Toronto. Hope to get out and explore the city a little bit this afternoon just before dinner. What you see here on the first slide is a building. This is my life before Katerra, when I thought I was really busy at Miller Hull. I had spent 30 years there. I thought maybe I would scale back and go to work for this little startup that was only 40 people back in 2016. But this project was one of the most interesting projects that I worked on as a design partner at Miller Hull. And how many people in the room are familiar at all with this project, the Bullitt Center? Has anyone seen this before? We've got maybe just a couple of hands go up. I tried this all over the country in the U.S. when I tour around. Mostly I'm speaking to architects, and most of the hands in the room go up. Which is the point that Dennis Hayes was making when he hired Miller Hull to do this project. So this building is the first commercial office building to get certified under the Living Building Challenge. So it had to meet all of those stringent requirements. This is like taking LEED Platinum to a completely new level. We have to prove it with building performance. So it's net zero energy. It meets all the requirements of the red list for materials, and it harvests every drop of rainwater that falls on the roof, and so on. And what Dennis was trying to do here is just change the conversation about the way office buildings are done in America. This is just a simple 50,000 square foot office building that's rented out at market rate, but it was one of the most challenging projects that I've ever worked on. And what's interesting about that is at Katerra, what we're trying to do is essentially the same thing, that we're trying to change the conversation about how buildings are made, how buildings are designed, how they're fabricated, how they're assembled. And of course, everyone in this room is on the same mission, that we have to figure out a way to do things better. This industry is ripe for change. The reasons are, obviously, one of the themes for this conference is housing. So, one of the reasons that Katerra exists is simply because of this challenge out there. It's also, I think, an opportunity. As far as Silicon Valley goes, they see this as an untapped market that is ripe for disruption. It's the only way that we can achieve some of these numbers. There's just such a massive need across the globe for workforce housing. And not only workforce housing, but just simply the amount of building that we're going to see happen over the next 35 years is kind of staggering. And if we continue on the same path that we're on now, there's virtually no way that we'll ever be able to hit these numbers. In addition to this dramatic need for more housing and more building, there's also the fact that the productivity in this industry that we're all part of has been literally flat since World War II. So when you look at this industry compared to any other, and there's a drop-off in the amount of skilled labor entering the market to deliver these buildings, it's kind of this train wreck happening here where there's no way we can continue to build the same way. The two lines on this chart that I think are interesting, if you look at manufacturing and wholesale and retail, those are right in the middle of the graph there, and you see how they've taken off with the technology revolution that began really into the 80s and 90s. And if you think about Amazon and Walmart on the retail side, and of course on the manufacturing side, the way that automobiles or airplanes or consumer electronics are manufactured, that's all dramatically changed over the years. And in fact, the thing that's maybe the most interesting and exciting about working at Katerra is the fact that the vast majority of our C-suite and our executives come from outside of the industry. There are only a couple, I'm one of the exceptions, that know anything about building, about construction or about design of buildings. So the leadership for Katerra is primarily from the tech industry. Our founder, Michael Marks, he was an icon in Silicon Valley, one of the first CEOs to really introduce vertical integration into contract manufacturing. He ran a company called Flextronics. He had about 350,000 employees working for him when he left, and he had factories in 30 countries. So this kind of growth for Michael is like business as usual. In this industry, we just haven't seen anything like it before. So again, to repeat what I said in the beginning, it was a company of 40 when I started in January of 2016. So in less than 5 years, we've gone from 0 to 8,000. Pretty remarkable, and it's just been a crazy ride. So how are we doing this, and how are we trying to transform this industry? It's really taking a lesson from that consumer electronics manufacturing business, where in contract manufacturing, what Michael was doing is he essentially had access to a supply chain that was a common set of parts that could then be assembled for various manufacturers, whether it was HP or Apple or Samsung or whoever. They would come to Michael, and he would essentially assemble their products and working with their team on product development. And we're taking a similar approach. So in terms of housing, the way we're approaching it is we do have a common set of elements you can see in this simple diagram. Within a building platform, there are things like kitchen kits and cabinets and washer and dryer kits, floor panels and fully loaded wall panels and so on that can be repeated in various product types, whether it's a garden style or podium or mid-rise. Those repeatable elements are key to this approach to manufacturing. The other key to this, of course, is that vertical integration. This is Michael's vision. This is what made him famous in Silicon Valley. What he's brought to Katerra is this idea that we need to own, every step of the process in order to be successful. Katerra started as a supply chain company. It was quickly determined that there was no way to just take this supply chain and force it down the throat of a general contractor who has relationships with subs, who have relationships with suppliers, who take them salmon fishing every summer, and there's just no way you can break into that if you're just showing up with your own supply chain. So we had to do it all. We had to be our own builder. We had to have our own factories. We had to have our own design team. That's where I come in. The expansion for Katerra in North America is starting to fill out, I guess, what we call this big smile, this big C, kind of around the coastal cities, starting up in Vancouver with Michael Green and Associates and Equilibrium Engineering, and then down around through Silicon Valley and up the eastern seaboard. Proud to say that we do have a small office here in Toronto. I was able to visit for the first time yesterday. About 25 people here doing mostly product development. They're in our R&D group. It's also our headquarters for artificial intelligence. So it's exciting to stop by and see what those guys are up to here in Toronto. Across Asia, most of our work to date has been on the supply chain side. So we have global sourcing managers, about 60 of those individuals across the country, or across the globe, out there sourcing materials for Katerra that become unique to our catalog, or they become at least, we have a contract with these manufacturers that is, as good as it gets in the market. This analogy or metaphor has been used a lot, but I'm going to use it anyway because I think it really illustrates the point for Katerra. So, when you buy a new car, you have different packages in the interior that you can select, and you're very confident that no matter what package you select, for sure that it's going to look great. Any good car manufacturer, they're not going to offer something that doesn't look fantastic. They might look different, but they all work well together. And that's because they've really curated their own supply chain and their options that are specific to their manufacturing. That hasn't really happened in this industry, and this is what we're trying to do. So we have our own catalog. So for multifamily housing, we have a very tight catalog, and we know that our customers, they have few choices, but those choices are good choices. These are high quality products. They've been vetted to make sure that they meet our environmental stewardship requirements. Nothing is being made in a sweatshop in a foreign land that it doesn't meet our social requirements. So we feel really good about everything that we produce. And if we can't find something that we think meets our needs, and then we have a group that goes out and designs that ourselves. Sometimes this is purely for economics. If we feel like we can make a kitchen faucet that is going to be as beautiful as a high-end faucet but cost at the price of a low-end, and we can put our name on it, then that's what we'll do. So we've just launched a brand called Kova. You'll be able to see it online. There's a catalog now. The idea is to be able to sell these products to anybody across the globe. So we're excited about being able to develop things like our own lighting line, our plumbing fixtures, door hardware. Anything that the customer comes in contact with, we want to make sure that that experience is of the highest quality. And so the result, just like the inside of an automobile, the inside of our multifamily units, we feel will be quite beautiful, very coordinated, and we don't have to think about this with a blank piece of paper every time. We know that these selections that we've already made that are in our catalog, they're easy to assemble into these interiors. And on the exterior, of course, as Kieran Timberlake has put it in their book, Refabricating Architecture, we embrace what's called mass customization. So we're not into volumetric manufacturing. We're into more of a flat pack and kit type of manufacturing, and that allows us this kind of design flexibility so that the interior of this building might be exactly like the interior of this building, but the exterior can change. So we can respond to jurisdictional requirements, local environment, culture, things like that. So how do we do it? And well, I'll address housing first because this is the most mature of our products that we're developing right now. We call these building platforms. This happens to be from our garden building platform. So garden meaning a 3-story walk-up multifamily building. And this is from our workforce model. So this is our most streamlined model of multifamily housing that we have to offer to date. And what you see across the top is we only have 3 building options. That's it. Very few options, which helps drive the cost down by streamlining our manufacturing. Within those 3 options are a set of unit plans that are very tight. Those unit plans are all made up of these manufactured assemblies that can be repeated. So essentially, any one of our projects is made up of a combination of buildings, which are made up of these units, which are made up of the manufactured assemblies that I showed you before. So to take it down to a little bit deeper, this is the only 2-bedroom unit that we offer within the workforce housing garden platform. And across the bottom of the page, you can see where we have all of the building services are organized around a spine, a common spine with 3-story vertical shafts that are pre-manufactured in the factory. So as an example of the way that we now have to document our buildings, which is quite different than the way an architect typically documents a building, we're documenting in BIM using Revit as our backbone. We're documenting these fully loaded manufactured assemblies. So we have waste piping, supply piping, electrical, ductwork. Everything is done in the factory. This happens to be a 32-foot long repeatable floor panel that goes down the spine either side of the common wall on this 3-story building platform. So it's quite a different way to work, really exciting, I think, for our design team to think about buildings in a new way when this industry has been pretty stagnant for so many years. With this one, we offer very few options, but enough variety to where we think this can actually fit in quite well and give jurisdictions, give cities who really need workforce housing enough variety. So what you see here is just the options that we have for wall panels. We have 3 exterior finishes, different colors, of course, so these can all be changed around to give you some variety. And then we can take some of those same elements, and now we're starting to develop a platforms for single family, which the market is even larger than multifamily across North America. And we're able to use the same kitchens, very similar bath kits, a lot of the same casework. Even some of the wall panels we're finding that we can repeat as we go from platform to platform. So this has been pretty exciting to see how we started with one platform, is quickly moving into single family. It's also moving into more urban solutions because we know that really to make a dent in workforce housing across North America, we have to address the urban solution. This can't be just garden. So the fortunate thing is that the building codes are also changing simultaneously to allow taller buildings out of mass timber. And we're betting really big on mass timber. So this diagram represents what's coming in the US The International Building Code is adopting in 2021 buildings up to 18 stories out of mass timber. You already have at the UBC in Vancouver a 20-story mass timber building. So Canada's out ahead of the US on this right now, but we're trying to rapidly to catch up. And we see a massive market ahead of us in using mass timber. And there's some good reasons for it. I mean, one, this is a very large format panel that's made in a factory setting with very few people. It's lightweight. It's 1/6 the weight of concrete, so the equipment on site is less. It's quieter. It's safer to build with. Fewer workers on site, getting to that workforce issue that we have. And it is widely recognized as the most sustainable way to build. So it actually checks every single box for Katerra, and that's why we're betting so big on mass timber. What it means is those buildings that you typically see all over North America that are called 5/1 or 5/2, it's stick frame over a concrete podium that's, the height of those buildings is based on very, very old fire codes based on the height of a ladder truck and some archaic reasons why those buildings are set the way they are. Now with mass timber, we can actually go taller. So we can get up to 9 stories of buildings where you may have only been able to get to 6 before. So it changes the equation for a developer as we're able to start to go taller with these buildings. And we're excited to get up to 12 stories. This is really our sweet spot. We think anything between 4 and 12 stories is perfect for the Katerra model for workforce housing. So we're rapidly developing a platform for this to match our garden platform that I showed you before. This gives you an idea of what that can look like. This is just a simple timber frame diagram to show that we can take all of the gravity loads with a mass timber system that can go up incredibly quickly on site compared to PT concrete or steel. Most of these buildings are PT concrete, and everyone has seen how long those take to construct. This is also a quite beautiful material and the most sustainable way to build. So we see tremendous value in being able to put this up fast. Then we come in with non-load bearing cold form steel walls that are fully loaded with all of our plumbing and electrical that are repeatable all the way up. So just absolutely perfect for off-site manufacturing. This will give you an idea of one of the first projects we have using that model that is in design near Seattle, Washington. This is 12 stories of mass timber over a concrete podium. This is the kind of project that we see a lot of promise for across the country, and we think that we can by driving the speed down and by really narrowing the supply chain, we can also drive the economics of this product down to be able to provide good workforce housing closer to our urban cores. So into manufacturing. Just last week, we had the grand opening of our CLT factory in Spokane, Washington. This is the biggest investment that the company has made yet. It's a $120 million factory, quite an investment, and it will become one of the largest CLT producers in the world. We'll be able to produce up to 13 million square feet of 5-ply floor panel out of that factory a year. That's a lot of square footage. So now that we have that factory, that is very complementary to the frame factory that we currently have in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're about to open our second factory in Tracy, which I'll show you here in a moment. So those two products together will be the backbone of most of our work across North America. In the meantime, we've acquired a company in India called KEF Infra, and that's a very successful precast concrete company. We want to bring some of that technology from India into the US and be able to provide precast concrete as well. And of course, it's easy to imagine why that fits so well into our philosophy. It's all made in a factory, put together on site with fewer workers. So the combination of these three, we think, is going to be, again, the backbone of everything that we do. So a little bit more on the manufacturing. You can see that we have 2 precast concrete factories in India. we're expanding rapidly due to a large contract in Saudi Arabia to develop workforce housing there. This problem that we see in North America is happening all over the globe. Everybody is short on workforce housing. This is that 80 to 120% AMI. This is not subsidized, affordable housing that is at the very low end, but this is the major part of the population that is largely ignored by the AEC industry. That's the massive need that we need. This is school teachers and firefighters and architects. Trust me, it's architects. Any architects in the room know, we're in that category. So the factories we're investing in, and we're optimizing, automating. This is exciting. This is our factory in Tracy. It will open later this year. We've learned a lot from factory number 1 in Phoenix. We're introducing a lot more in terms of automation and robotics into this plant. This is almost 600,000 square feet. This is just a little video that was shot off of somebody's phone, but it'll give you an idea of we're just commissioning this factory now. It's not in full operation, but this is one of our new robots that just got installed, and we're able to now start to use robotics for some of these tasks that used to require multiple people. And so we're excited about bringing this kind of technology into this type of construction that really hasn't happened yet in the U.S. or in Canada. And then on the CLT side, you can turn the music off if you can, thanks. We don't need the music. This is a little video that's not yet posted on our website, but it will be soon. This is something that we've produced in celebration of our grand opening of our CLT factory. But what you see here is it's about 170,000 square foot facility. This factory costs 3 times as much as the factory I just showed you, even though it's a fraction of the size. But this is the equipment that's in this factory is just remarkable. We have a decoupled sorting line in the front end of this factory that will be able to X-ray scan every single board, and the output of this again is pretty impressive. Our press is the largest in the world. It's 12 feet wide, 60 feet long. We'll be able to press either 2 5-layer panels or 3 3-layer panels at a time, which really sets up the output out of this factory. So the opening was on Friday. I think we've got some people here from Bird Construction. I know Bird Construction was there. We had Kareem from Sidewalk Labs was out there. It was a fantastic event. This is our first building that's going up in Spokane, right down the street from the factory, which is pretty convenient. So a little bit more about how we're utilizing technology to help with all this process. So this is from our AI team here, right here in Toronto. And what you're seeing here is the use of artificial intelligence to do things like reduce waste. And so, for example, in the front end of our CLT factory, we'll be able to take information on every board. We'll take the DNA of every board and know exactly where to place that in the panel, whether to flip it or not. What knots to cut out, if there's excessive wane, how to cut that out of the board. And so our goal is to take what is typically up to 40% waste in a typical CLT plant down to essentially zero. And that's by using this artificial intelligence and machine learning to help us do that. So even though this is a little off topic of workforce housing or affordable housing, I want to show you the first building that we're doing with CLT just because I'm so excited about it. And it will relate in the very near future to everything we're doing in housing. But this is our first project. It's actually a classroom building for Eastern Washington University. You can see a combination of 900 and 1,200 square foot classrooms organized around a central core. And what you see here is a 30-foot span that is done with ribbed panels. So these are 10-foot wide CLT panels out of our factory set on top of glue-lam ribs on a 5-foot spacing. The ribs are coming from up north in Alberta. This is all spruce pine fir. All of our wood, in fact, right now is coming from Canfor. This is forest out of British Columbia. The wall panels have come from Structure Lam because we don't have a 3-layer panel certified yet. We don't really see anybody in this industry as competition. We're all in this together, trying to increase the market demand for this product. Here's some of our first panels being made. This is the first batch of rib panels right there in our factory. We prefabricated the ribs, and this is them being set. This is just a couple weeks ago, and anyone who's here who was on the tour from Bird, if they were able to see that building, I think they will agree that the product itself is just gorgeous. It just puts a smile on your face when you're in there. And this is, I think, going to be the new way to build in the future. And I'll end with this thought that I've become pretty close with a couple of execs from the Nature Conservancy because they're also going all in on mass timber. So I was able to talk Mark Wishney from TNC out of a couple of slides, and I've seen him present this before. And the way he puts it is, he said, you know, there are only a few levers that we really have to change the course of climate change. And one of those is reforestation. So they've got 600 scientists on staff, over 10,000 members in the Nature Conservancy. This is a powerhouse organization. They've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And, you know, if we could perhaps add, you know, a new forest like the size of France, that would actually make a dent. Well, that's pretty hard to do. So what they've come up with is a way to not only reforest, but take the carbon that is sequestered by those trees and turn that into buildings. So in this chart, what you're seeing is multiple harvests of a forest. And every time you harvest that wood, you're taking that carbon, you're storing it, you're putting it in a building. And then you're replanting that forest so it can grow again, which sequesters more carbon into those trees and so on. And in the meantime, you're taking offline those buildings that would have been done with concrete or steel. So they're pretty convinced that if this really does take off and we start building this way, this is not hundreds of buildings, but this is like thousands of buildings being done this way, it actually could make a difference. So that's my encouraging word to leave you all with today. Thank you for having me here.